Hello once again from David Rutledge. Welcome to the Earshot podcast. And we're kicking off with an interesting proposition. We are all religious, whether we think we are or not. At least that's the assertion coming from the world of anthropology, where religion takes in a variety of things that don't seem to be particularly religious at first glance. Gary Bryson is a proud atheist, but in this program he finds himself tripping over religion where he least expected to find it, and it makes him wonder if he might be missing out on something. Here's part one of The Accidental Atheist.
It's Sunday morning and I'm in church. Not that strange, you might think. Lots of people go to church on Sunday. But I'm an atheist, and this is an atheist church.
My name's Chris Ashcroft, and I am a member of the Sunday Assembly in Sydney.
What is the Sunday Assembly all about?
The Sunday Assembly is a group of people of no religion really, who meet together to form some sort of community. We have meetings where we have interesting people along. We have social activities. We have small groups that do things like craft and bushwalking. And basically it's a community support mechanism.
It operates in some ways very much like a church. I was very surprised, for example, that everybody stands up to sing.
I've heard the comment often, but sitting in rows and listening to somebody out the front, I think it's bound to look like church.
It's surprising the number of things that look like church, but are actually something else. Things that look like religion, but are really just ways of thinking about the world and our place in it. Things that are transcendent and have nothing to do with God. I've been an atheist since I was 14 years old, and probably even long before that. I remember a small child sat next to his mother in our drafty church. The arched ceiling stretching away to heaven, the whole place lit by angels dancing in the tall windows. I swear there were clouds up there in the rafters, heavenly souls, maybe even God in his wrath, whatever that was. But the thing about our church, you see, was that nothing ever happened. Our minister wasn't at all like this.
And the lightning shall split the sky, and the wrath of God will descend upon you in a hail of fire and brimstone.
He was more like this.
Just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father.
It wasn't his fault. He was Church of Scotland. I expect he was always faint with hunger, his stipend barely stretching to a daily bowl of watery porridge. But that's not what made me an atheist, though it's as good an excuse as any.
Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done.
What made me an atheist was that I just couldn't care. I couldn't care about our Father who art in heaven, or about hellfire and damnation, or about the baby Jesus and the Son of God who died for our sins. None of it mattered. I became an atheist by default. An accidental atheist, if you like, because being an atheist takes conscious effort. And at 14, there were too many other things to be conscious of. I stopped going to church, and I've been a non-believer ever since. But I've often wondered if I'm missing something. Maybe I lack the spiritual gene. Maybe I don't have what it takes to experience the love of God. And I envy religious people, I really do, for the comfort and the certainty that's theirs, the big fluffy pillow of faith. What is it exactly, this unseen, unprovable thing that enthralls so many? And can you be spiritual without it? That's what I hope to find out. And as an unbeliever, where better to start than Sunday Assembly? So, are you a long-term atheist yourself?
No, I'm an ordained Baptist minister, And it was a long process, beginning with actually studying the texts, but it was a long process of evolution where I couldn't believe it anymore.
So you had doubts?
Well, I don't see any evidence for all of the things that we used to believe, like, there's a God created the world, prayer works, and all the things that I was brought up on. All of those things, I just don't see any evidence for them anymore, so I don't accept it.
You may not have heard of Sunday Assembly. They're not your typical atheists.
I don't care what you believe and what you say.
If Buddhism is true, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are absolutely false.
Are you an atheist or not? Yes, I will say. I am.
And why you have to call it religion? Just get rid of it.
The atheists who make all the noise today are celebrities like Richard Dawkins, poster boy of the so-called new atheists and their scientific, evidence-based brand of anti-religion.
Richard Dawkins is the most emblematic of what you would call the new atheist critique. And I think what's flawed about it is it's too empirically based. They're treating religion as though it were a science. And that's not what it is, and that's not how it operates in people's lives.
Sean Illing teaches political theory at Louisiana State University and is a contributor to Salon.com and Slate magazine. He's an atheist, but critical of the new atheists and their take on religion.
Science, being interested simply in what is, doesn't really have an answer for meaning, right? The big why questions, why am I here, and what is my purpose, and what does it all mean, and all the rest of it. And I think it's to the new atheist discredit if they don't take seriously people's efforts to find answers to those questions, even if those answers are false, even if they're pure fictions. They're still fulfilling something that matters in that believer's life. And if you're just going to dismiss that, that's fine. But what you're not going to do is persuade them that they can find answers in a different context that doesn't involve believing things that aren't true.
I don't care what you believe, so long as what you believe is not used to legislate in this country and affect what the rest of us believe.
You take someone like Dawkins, who spends a lot of time pointing out that many of the claims in the Bible are false, for instance. Well, that's not exactly revelatory, right? I mean, since Copernicus, at least, we've known that the empirical and historical and physical claims in the Bible aren't true, and yet religion persists, which suggests to me that people are attracted to religion or respond to religion or identify with religion for reasons independent of their truthfulness, despite what they may say. So someone says they believe in God, they won't tell you that, well, God isn't real, but I believe in him or her or it nevertheless. They assume that it's true, but the point I'm making is that they accept the proposition initially, not because it's true, but because it means something in their lives. The new atheist movement really should be a little more sensitive to what religion really is, not in order to defend it, but to understand what it is they're actually arguing against. Are they trying to win an argument, or are they trying to make the world less dogmatic? And I think if it's the latter, then they have to have as nuanced an understanding of religion as possible. Otherwise, they're just going to be picking at low-hanging fruit and preaching to the converted. And that's not the most pragmatic or useful approach, in my opinion. Because religion has sort of hijacked the spiritual domain, for lack of a better word, most people assume that the only way to have these kinds of experiences is in a religious context. And I don't think that's necessarily true. But atheists in general have not spent a lot of time thinking about these sorts of things. And I think that's one of the great failings of atheism in general. And I think new atheism would be incredibly more helpful if it did try to at least tackle these questions. Atheism doesn't have a really consistent and compelling response to religion when it comes to the question of, well, how can I get all the things I get from religion without it?
So the new atheists don't speak for all non-believers. They certainly don't speak for agnostics. or for atheists who ask the existential questions that science can't handle, or at best reduces to a mechanistic biology. Why are we here? What's our place in the universe? What's the best way to live our lives? This is the stuff of metaphysics, ethics, philosophy. It's the province of theologians, but non-believers can ask these questions too. Ailsa Piper is the author of Sinning Across Spain, an account of her travels through the pilgrim routes from Granada to Galicia. For her, the questions are more important than the answers.
I believe in the restful set of evening and the pale wispy promise of morning, in the hope of rain on parched soil. I believe in confession with all my heart, telling the true story of ourselves eye to eye with another human being, owning up to all that we are. I believe that stories shape our lives, and that the more honest we are in our stories, the more freedom we will gain. I know there is beauty in effort. I know slow is sublime. I know snails are gurus. I know we are all connected, whether we like it or not, and we owe it to this astonishing planet to acknowledge that fact in our actions as well as our words. I don't know any more than I ever did about what comes after, or if there even is an after. But one thing I do know, I absolutely know, I will die, and I'm perfectly happy to die wondering. These days, I suppose professionally I'm really a writer, teacher, walker. But I have been in my time an actor and director as well. I've sort of made my whole living out of sort of making it up as I go along. Yeah.
Don't we all?
Yeah, we do.
But you're actually a pilgrim, aren't you?
Yes, I am. And in fact, mostly when people ask me what I do, I say I'm a walker. And the idea of pilgrim is really a beautiful shape to contain things, because it has that notion of movement and not necessarily reaching destination. I mean, really, you stop being a pilgrim when you get there. And for me, the life of that word spirituality, which I find really difficult, for me it's only about searching, because in the journey I find peace. I don't care about knowing, but I like the idea that there's mystery. I feel like I live within mystery, and that's really the pilgrim experience. You wake up in the morning, you walk, and you don't actually know where you'll get to at the end of the day. And that seems quite natural to me, much more natural than knowing and feeling sure.
We're sitting on the edge of South Head, overlooking North Head, the Pacific Ocean on one side, the opening to Sydney Harbour on the other. What does it mean to you, this spot?
Well, I suppose if I can talk briefly about a pilgrimage walk I did, which was 1,300 kilometres, and finished at a place in Spain that is called Finisterre, and it's 100 kilometres past the holy city that everyone makes for. And I didn't feel much when I got to the holy city particularly, so I walked on to this place, and when I got there was a lighthouse, and there was the wild Atlantic dropping away on one side, and a tiny fishing village called Finisterre behind me. And it means Land's End. But when I got there, I had this profound sense that the journey had not ended